It over to you, Miss Stephanie.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Let me just get my things here. Okay, got it. Hi, welcome to Molds 101. We are here to give you all the basics of how to work with silicone molds, how to get the most out of your molds, and how they work really wonderfully with UV resin. So that is the star of the show today. This is UV resin. This is a magical crafting material that works so well with molds, and you will be able to make jewelry in just a few minutes with this resin. There are other resins on the market, types of resin where you have like two things and you need to mix them. This is not that. This is a newer technology that cures in UV light. So that light comes from a UV lamp, which we'll be using today, or it cures just using the UV rays of the sun. So I'm going to take you through the whole process of making jewelry using the molds, and then adding metal pieces or finding ways to connect them together to make earrings and bracelets. So let me walk you through what I have here. I think we can change the camera view there. So these are the projects that we're going to be making today. And I'm going to walk you through all of these in real time. So let me just walk you through what I have here. I have this blue that it's on is actually a silicone mat. So you can see like one side of the mat is matte and one side is shiny. And you can use either side. I prefer the matte side just so it doesn't flash the camera there. And then we have a UV lamp. So all of the supplies that I'm showing you are available at Michaels in stores and on michaels.com. This is a UV lamp. If I hit that button, you can see those lights come on. This is a 9-watt UV lamp. It plugs into a USB cord. So that would be like what you plug your phone into. You can plug it into a battery charger that has USB input or laptop. And so when I hit this button, those lights turn on for 1 minute. It's a 1-minute timer. And we're going to talk more about that lamp. And then off to the side, I have some silicone mixing bowls that are super flexible like this. I have some wood sticks. This is all sold in a little mixing kit. Okay, and of course I have my resin, and I have an assortment of flowers over here to the side. These are dried and preserved flowers. We're going to be using these in a couple different pieces. And some assorted little surprises off here to the side. So that's kind of my setup. And just make sure that your setup, you don't want to be crafting near a window because this reacts to the UV light that will be coming into that window. So your items may start to harden before you want them to. So you don't want that to happen. If you have an allergy to resin, if you have a sensitivity to resins or just sensitive skin in general, wear gloves, work in a well-ventilated room. You want to follow all of the safety precautions that are listed on our packaging. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so let me move these off to the side. Also, I encourage you to use the chat function. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer as many as I can on air. But when you're chatting with us, we have other representatives from the company. We're happy to answer your questions. Also, we're going to be linking some things in the chat, product links, so you can buy these products directly, and also links to some videos and things. So be on the lookout for that. So this is the first thing that we are making. This is a little hoop earring, and it has pink and ivory dried flowers in it. Let me show you from the side. You can see those dried flowers are kind of placed at different depths. And that comes from this mold. This is our hoop mold. And so you can see right off the bat that these silicone molds are very clear. And that is because you want it to be clear. You want that light to be able to penetrate from all sides. And then also you'll notice that inside the package, there's some metal pieces in there. So those are the little parts. Here you can see one. It has a flat pad to turn your molded piece into an earring. We need to attach that to the side there. So that's already included inside the package for you. Just to walk you through our mold packaging, up in the corner is a project idea. And then on the back, we will always show you these blue shapes so that you can get a feel for what shapes this mold makes. So it does make 2 different size hoops and a little kind of a half dome stud. So you can see that here. That's those little indentations there. All right, so let me just talk a little bit about, here's that mold. This is well loved. You can see it has some little bits of glitter and stuff on it. So this is what we're going to be using. I want to show you the difference between these molds and some other silicone molds that are out there in the market. So this is a silicone mold. And so right away, you can see that how cloudy this is. And also like it's flop central over here, flopping around. The floppiness, it makes the cure just not as stable, and it can cause the silicone mold to kind of like pull away from your resin in a weird, ugly way. So just be careful. There's a ton of very cheap, low quality silicone molds out there, and they're just not going to give you the results that you want. And they're not going to be clear, so it may affect the curing. Let me also show you this silicone mold. So this is a candy mold, and there are tons of gorgeous shapes out there of this. You do not want to use an opaque mold like this with UV resin. This is great for candy. This is great for polymer clay. This is great for epoxy resin. This is great for a lot of different materials. But with UV resin, you do want to use a clear mold like this. Okay. Also, all of our molds are marked with our brand here, so you know that it is a high quality mold for you. Okay, let's just jump right in. So our first piece, as I showed you, is this, and this just uses clear resin with flowers. I have found that sometimes just the simplest designs work the best, especially when you're using dried flowers. You want the flowers to be the star of the show. So I'm just going in, I'm taking the cap off here. I'm going in directly from the bottle and just pouring a little layer in here. And you can see that it's just kind of self-leveling. And I'm not being too incredibly neat about it, but you can see it kind of like finds its own level. And then I'm going to put a little dot here on top of the mold. And I'll show you what that is for in a minute. Okay, so for this one, we are using these flowers. These are lace flowers. They come in a lot of different colors there. And so here they are. We always keep these plastic blisters that they come in. It's a great way to store your flowers because there's 2 parts of the blister, and you can kind of keep them protected from dust. And these are very, very delicate, so you want to keep them protected. All right, so I can go in with a tweezer. Sometimes these are easier to deal with a tweezer. As soon as I find my tweezer. Which we're getting right now. All right, so here I have the pink one. This is what it looks like. And I want to go in with scissors and turn this into kind of like flower confetti. So I'm just gonna snip off these little end pieces. And leave that stem a little bit in the middle. Great question from Regina. Thank you for your question in the chat there. Regina asked, and so I just have this little middle piece that I'm going to throw away. Regina asked, can you use your own dried flowers that you've gathered from nature? Absolutely. Use dried flowers, but you have to dry them. Make sure you do not want to be putting fresh flowers inside resin. Because the flower will start to decompose inside the resin, and we don't want that. I'll show you an example of that. This is a leaf and we put the date on it. So about 2 months ago, we pulled a leaf from the bush outside our offices and it was green, and we put it in resin, and now it's this weird mustardy yellow color. And we put a date on it because we wanted to see what happened to it. So it's about 2 months old and it looks like this. No like crazy mold or anything on it, but again, it was a leaf, not a flower. Flowers have a lot more moisture inside them, and it's the moisture that can cause the decomposition. Okay, so let's bring my mold back in. I'm going to bring the camera down a little bit. All right, so here I have my wood stick. It has a pointy end and it has this sort of dough foot end. I'm going to go in with the dough foot and just wet the tip of the stick with that resin. Okay, and that is how you can pick these things up. Just pick them up, put them inside here. I am, I'm just going to haphazardly put these in here. You don't need to get your protractor out and measure these things perfectly. This is a natural look. And so I just kind of like sporadically, some of them I'm putting like kind of along the walls of the mold and some kind of down in the middle. I'm going to have to put this camera up a little bit so my stick doesn't touch it. All right, let's all get in the bath here. All these flowers. We're going to be adding another color in here, an ivory color flower. So it may look a little sparse now, but we're going to really fill that out. Okay, let's go in with our next flower. I have my tweezers now, so that makes it a little bit easier. Very delicate. And scissors to kind of chop those ends off. And dried flowers are such a beautiful thing to put in resin, but there are just a list of things that work so beautifully in resin. Anything from glitter, confetti, stickers, paper, photos. You can really, there's a lot of different materials that work so beautifully in resin. I particularly love the dried flowers though, because it's such a pretty botanical look. And then I can really spend my time, loading this up. Excuse me. I can spend my time loading this up with flowers as much as I want. We have done flower pieces, and I'm going to show you some of them where we have just filled it with flowers and it looks so pretty. Okay, a question from Lindsay. Thank you for your question in the chat. She asked, can you put the flowers in first and then the resin? You can, but the challenge you will have when you do that is, especially if you're using like a larger flower, like more of this size flower, if you put the flower in first, there you can trap air underneath that flower. And so it will cause a bubble under that you can't really see from the top. So we always suggest when you're layering flowers is to put a little bit of resin in the mold first and then the flowers. And it's two reasons. Number one, because of that air bubble issue, but also because it's easier to get them to stay inside the mold when there's already a little bit of resin in there. Okay, so that is about all the flowers that I'm going to put in. And then I'm going to bring my lamp in. Here's my UV lamp and hit the button to cure for 1 minute. So this is kind of like a pre-cure. I obviously haven't filled it to the top with resin yet. And the reason I want to pre-cure it is, well, pre-curing and curing in layers is your friend with UV resin. Don't feel like you have to get it all in one fell swoop. It works wonderfully in layers. And then also, because I've already taken the time to put those flowers where I want them to go, if I just filled it to the top with resin, they would kind of like disperse and get in areas. This is going to lock them into place. So this little cure here for just a minute will make sure they stay where I want them to be. Okay. So this is actually gone for less than a minute. And I want to show you how quick this material works. Is this is already, I can show you on this little bubble. This is already hardened. So that was on there for 20, 30 seconds, something like that. And it's already hardened. Now it might not be cured the whole way, but that is enough for a pre-cure stage. All right, now we're ready to fill to the top. So I go in directly from the bottle again and fill it up. That is finding its kind of doming here at the top. And I want to fill it to the very top. There is a little bit of shrinkage that occurs when you cure this. And so you want to make sure that it's filled to the top. Then what you can do is you can go in with your stick and just, I don't know, just kind of make sure that there's no air bubbles. I kind of saw a bubble happening in this corner here. Bubbles are not really a problem with this resin. You can see, I'll try to get this as close to the camera as possible. There's really not a problem with the bubbles like you get from epoxy resin. All right, I'm going to put a little bit more. It's very hard to see because this is a clear material, but I can see that I want just a little more on top of there. And then again, I can go in with my stick. I like to kind of hit the edges because sometimes, this is a very thick resin, thick gel-like material. Sometimes that can kind of pucker along the edges. So I just want to make sure there's no puckering and that we're ready. Now, the beauty of UV resin is this will stay liquid until I want it to harden. So I can come back to it tomorrow and this will still be liquid. If there's no sunshine in this room, it'll still be liquid. We're using, a question in the chat is, what are we using? This is UV resin. So this is our 60 milliliter bottle. And this is what we're using for all of our projects today. Okay, we're ready to cure it. So while this is going, let's talk about total cure times. So I would say with anything clear, anything that's not too dark or opaque, your cure time is only going to be about 2 to 4 minutes tops. If it's really dark, if you've put a lot of stuff in there and it's kind of blocking the light, you may need a few more minutes, and that's under a UV lamp. And if you prefer to cure in the sunlight, which I love curing in the sunlight, you cannot beat the pure UV rays from the sun. And I'm in Southern California, so we've got great sun here. But out in the sun, if I put this outside right now, it would probably take 4 to 6 minutes in bright sunlight. Even in indirect sunlight, it is going to start to cure. Indirect sunlight, you may need 15 minutes on a cloudy day. And that of course varies by where you are, what kind of sun you have, and weather and all kinds of things. Thank you, Lindsay, for your comment. The sun does cure it so evenly. It is such a pure, deep cure that no one can match with, you know, kind of a man-made UV lamp. So I love curing it in the sunlight. Here we go. So that's what it looks like. That's just been for 1 minute. I'm going to let it go for another minute. And so we have a question here from Kathy. What is the difference between soft and hard resin, and when should you use either? Great question. So here I'm going to show you. We have hard resin. This is your classic. This is your workhorse. This is what you're going to use 80–90% of the time. This turns into a hard plastic cure. This is a hardened plastic. Okay. So that's hard type resin. We just introduced, this is new at Michael's as of maybe a month ago, a soft type resin. So we really try to call that out on our packaging. This is soft texture. So let me show you what soft texture is. This is a bracelet we made a few classes ago. We made these autumn leaves. We did this from soft resin. And you see what's happening here? It's like a gummy bear texture, moldable, soft. And so your question was, when do you use soft resin? And it's up to you. It depends on the thing that you're making. We use soft resin on this because it's a bracelet. And we thought it would be more comfortable kind of laying over the wrist if it had movement to it. We also have used soft resin on, let me see if I can find one here, on some rings. Let me show you this ring, which we also made in that same class. So this is a cocktail ring, and we made this with soft resin just because we thought it would be more comfortable on your finger. So it really just depends on what you're making, how that thing is going to be used. Okay, so we are ready to demold this. This is the fun part. You can see it pops out very easily. Just kind of put your finger underneath and pop it out. And this is what we have. No editing involved. This is the real thing. Now, you may find that curing after only 2 minutes that it might be a little sticky. See when I put my finger on it, kind of stays with me for a sec. That is very natural with UV resin. That's because of surface oxidation. If that happens, just cure it for a couple more minutes, and that will just harden up those edges. If you are curing in sunlight, this surface oxidation really isn't a problem. You get rid of that tackiness in just a few minutes. Another question came through as this cures about using alcohol inks. Alcohol inks can be used with UV resin, but not in the same way that people use them with epoxy resin. You see people dropping alcohol inks, like drop inside of molds. And that is a very beautiful technique with epoxy resin. You can use it with UV resin, but you have to make sure that whatever alcohol ink is enclosed in resin. So if I was dropping alcohol inks, let's say, into this shape, I would just make sure that underneath it, there's UV resin, and on top of it, there's UV resin, and on the side of it, because you need to enclose it inside. Okay, so that went for another minute, and here's our shape. This is what it looks like out of the mold. I'm going to show you all sides of it. Here's the back. And you can kind of see, if I put it really close to the camera, these little bits of flash here, little like jaggedy bits. Couple ways to get rid of those. You can, well, the easiest way is just go in with your nail and just kind of run your nail along the side there. If you don't want to do that, you can, or if they're kind of like more jaggedy, just a regular emery board. We do suggest working with this wet. So I would dip this emery board in water and just kind of knock off any rough parts like that. And the reason you want to use water is you always want to wet sand this material, okay? And the reason for that is you do not want to breathe in resin dust. So wet sand it, and that really cuts down on the dust. All right, so that's looking pretty good. I have a little bit of like a burr there, which I'm gonna just fix a little bit. And we're ready to turn this into an earring. So we have the little metal pieces. This comes with the earring. Oh, there it is. Let me find the earring back. So this comes with this mold. You get a post and the earring back. A question came through, is it true that resin can yellow? And that is true. All resin will yellow over time, depending on how it's stored, and whether it has, exposed to a lot of sunlight, a lot of environmental factors. It can yellow over time, but I can tell you that UV resin is yellowing resistant, so it's going to last a lot longer than some epoxy resins that are out there. Okay, so let's attach this. I'm just going to put a little dot of resin on my silicone mat. This is not my desktop. This is a silicone mat. Please do not put UV resin on your desks or your work surfaces. All right, so I go in with my little pad here, and I'm just going to pick up some of that resin. And I'm trying to pick it up so that the resin is like kind of on top. And then I choose what side I want to attach this to. I can attach it to this side or this side. And so that's just your personal preference. Maybe look at where the flowers ended up and just decide where you want to put it. I'm going to put mine right here. Oops. And put that in place. And center it, make sure it's centered. And when you have it where you want it, just bring the lamp to the piece and turn it on. And I just cure it while holding it. A question from Liana about inhaling resin dust. We don't have any like scientific studies on that, but I can tell you that if you're a hardcore user of UV resin, you just want to take precautions. These are chemicals that you're working with. And so using precautions like a mask, a well-ventilated room, gloves if you need it, and then just not breathing in those airborne particles, probably a good idea. So I'm just kind of turning this around and making sure that light hits all parts of it. And then to make it extra secure, I can go in with another little just dollop of UV resin on there, but you don't really need it. That is on there. And I'm like kind of pressing on this to show you like the bond that is bonded on there. And then you have your earring back. And this is ready to wear. You can absolutely wear this right now. Other kinds of resin, you need to wait 24, 36 hours until it cures. I don't have time for that. I'm too impatient. I would like to make a pair of earrings and wear them tonight. Okay, so our first earring is done. Hoops. Speaking of hoops, before I go on, I'm going to show you, we have several different hoop molds. So this is the one I just used. This makes hoops and studs. Oh, darn it, I shouldn't take that off. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because I'm going to show you something. Here's another hoop mold that we have. This makes heart hoops and these kind of like flat, wide hoop shapes. I'll show you. Here's a heart hoop. And then here is this flat, wide shape. Look how gorgeous this is with the blue flowers in there. And this technique is exactly the same. You add that little metal piece last. Here's another heart shape that we made with some red flowers. Okay. Let me show you some other hoops that we've done. It's like show and tell time now, just to give you some ideas. We want to get you pumped. We want to get you excited to try this on your own. Here it shows the difference in size between the small hoop and the large hoop that comes out of that mold. I'm going to show you. So this is little leaves and flowers, flowers, flowers. We combine two different colors. This is little gold flakes in there. So you can do it throughout the whole earring or just on part of it. This looks really cool. And the benefit of using molds, if you are making things to sell them, if you are making things as gifts, molds are so wonderful for that because you can make the same thing over and over and over, dozens, hundreds of times. These molds will not degrade over time. They will stay pliable and for unlimited usage. Let me just show you a couple other ones. This one has leaves and little gold flakes. This one we did with some yellow flowers. Here we use some tints to tint. I like it when it's ombre. I feel like that just gives it a special little touch that elevates it. Here we did 3 different colors. You can mix 2 colors, 3 colors. Okay. All right, we are moving on. This is our next project that we're making. And these have little iridescent flakes inside of them. And that comes from this mold. I'm going to give you a tip here for any of our molds. There's the shapes that it makes on the front, but always turn your mold over and see if you get any bonuses on the back. This does have a bonus. See this cutout shape here? This can absolutely be used as a mold. I can make a rectangle molded piece from the back of this mold. So make sure you turn your molds over and see if you have anything usable. Not every mold does. Like, for example, this is that heart hoop mold. When I turn that over, there's nothing here. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mess with that piece. There's no closed shapes to pour into. But yeah, fun little bonus tip there. Okay, so this is our mold. You can see we have U shapes and rectangle shapes with these little toppers. So here's the topper. And for this one, I am going to start with a silicone cup. Let me get a clean one. Here we go. And then I'm just going to pour some resin in there and I'm kind of eyeballing an amount, what I think is going to fill that. All right. And then I am going to go in with some flakes. So we have these iridescent flakes in a lot of different colors. And you can see, we used white and purple in this. You can see it just, even though we're using clear resin, it looks tinted because of the color of your inclusions. All right, so here we go. We are just gonna shake a whole bunch in there. At the same time, I can put fine glitter, like we have just standard fine glitter. I always like to add a little bit of fine glitter just to kind of fill in the holes in between these little flakies. And you can put as much glitter as you want. You can make a paste out of glitter. I mean, you can really load up the glitter. And that resin will still cure. And then you can just mix it around and decide if you want more flakies. You can decide kind of how packed they are in there. All right, this is looking good. And we are going to do this shape. So because this is silicone, I can really manipulate it and make it very easy to pour. So it can pour directly from the cup, or I can kind of get my stick in there and scoop it out a little bit. And you know, you don't have to be so careful with this. When I first started playing around with these molds, I was so careful. I placed each flake in its spot, and you know, I've just become impatient since then. So I kind of dump it in, and then I deal with fixing it up. All right, so here you can see I have like over poured it a little bit. I don't need to worry about that. As long as it's thin, I can just kind of scrape off of the top. And now I'm just moving these flakes around to make sure that they're evenly dispersed, because it seems like I have up in this corner, there's like more flakes than in other areas. Thank you for your question, Lindsay. Lindsay asked, where do you post your creations? Now, we always encourage you to post what you make. We love to see what you guys make. You guys are so extra creative, and it warms my heart to see what you do. If you post it on Instagram, Facebook, use the hashtag Make It With Michaels. You also want to use the hashtag UV Resin Craft. And I'm gonna show you. I'll just bring this in here now. Can we read it? Oh, there we go. So hashtag UV Resin Craft. That's the name of our product. It's on the front of every package. I check that hashtag. I check what you guys make. I super spy your pages. I love it. So make sure you use those. And then you can connect with me on Instagram at Stephanie Menor Creates. I would love to hear from you. I'll show that again at the end of the class. All right, so I think we're ready. I'm just, you know, you can kind of scrape off the top if you've got extra resin on the sides here, kind of scrape it off. I don't see that this is filled all the way, so I'm going to kind of pre-cure this and then maybe add a little more resin on top so I get like a smooth dome. I always keep a paper towel off to the side so that every time I take the stick out, I can just wipe that off. Okay. And now this whole doming thing that I just talked about, I'm going to show you an example of that. So the resin will contract just a little bit, maybe less than 10% in the mold. And so sometimes what that can do, I don't know if you can see, this is an earring that we made where the back of the earring is not filled all the way. Can you see that it's like a kind of a trough in there, a little bit bumpy? This is not a problem. All you have to do is just dome some extra resin on top to get that really smooth, which I'm going to do. I'm going to move this to the side and show you. So if you have, if you didn't fill it the mold the whole way, you can just come in with resin right on top of it, slap that thing on there, and go in with a stick. If you need to, move that resin around. And that's how you can kind of dome the back of it so that's super smooth. Just cure it. Let me try to position these so both are curing at the same time. All right. So this is going to go. Oh, darn it. I forgot. I forgot to make the little topper. So let's pause, go in and do the top too. Oh, see, this resin started, I had this cup sitting next to the lamp, it started to cure just in those few seconds. Look at this like bit here. That's like partially cured resin. So that is another great tip. If you have resin mixed in a cup, don't put it by your lamp because it's going to harden. All right, so this shape looks like I overfilled a little bit. So let me just show you how to fix this. I kind of like it when I make mistakes because then I can show you what to do. Oops, then I can show you what to do. So see, I oversee it's all like spilling out here. I'm just gonna dip my stick in there and wipe it on a paper towel. Wipe it on a paper towel and kind of like dig it out a little bit. And there we go. Okay. We're ready to cure. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're gonna have to move fast. We only have about 15 minutes left of class, so I want to get through this project and also our bangle. So let me show you our bangle while that's curing. Here's our bangle mold. This makes smooth, round bangles. You can see it makes a 68 mm bangle. And I'm going to open this up. Thank you. There we go. Here's our bangle mold. And so it's got this channel in there that's going to make a full round bangle. So let me move this to the side so it can keep curing. And actually, I'm going to move it very far because I don't want it to mess up what I'm doing over here. Okay, bangle. Always, you want to start with a little bit of resin inside there. So I put the nozzle all the way inside the mold, kind of going around. Just a little bit. That's going to help prevent air bubbles, and it will help prevent it'll help the flowers to stick. So here are the flowers. These are plum blossoms, dried, pressed. We're going to use 2 colors here. We always hang on to the packaging so that we can do that with it. Easiest way to pick those up, again, is to dip the tip of your stick into a little bit of resin, pick up a flower. Now this flower has a little bit of a turquoise petal, so I'm going to leave him off to the side. Okay, tip that, and then gently, because these flowers are very, oh, you can see it broke. See it broke a little bit? It's okay. All right, and just place each flower wherever you want it to go. You can kind of manipulate the mold itself, opening it up and placing that down in there. Remember that you're making a 3D object, so you want to pay attention to which side is the front of your flower and whether you want it on the bottom of the bangle, on the side of the bangle, and you can manipulate all of those things. I'm going to place one more flower here. And really helps to kind of open that up, get down in there. All right, so you go around, place them all. Once you have them placed, you want to do a pre-cure. And that will lock that into place. So I will put this under the lamp. We're just pretending right now. Put this under the lamp and pre-cure that. And then you can go in with another, this is kind of what we're doing here. Go in with your yellow flowers, place them in between in the same way. Lindsay has a question, does the resin smell bad? You know, it does have a slight odor, but we worked really hard in the formulation of this particular resin to make sure that it wasn't an unpleasant odor. There are other resins out there, UV resin. There are cheap UV resins out there. They stink. You do not want to use them. We were very cognizant. We wanted this to be an enjoyable experience, and You don't want to breathe that in. Okay, so with a little like movie magic, we're going to pretend that I have placed all of those flowers here in the mold and I've cured it for several minutes. This is a particularly thick mold. This is about, well, it's not quite a half an inch, but you want to make sure that that has time to cure. And we can jump right to the fun part, which is demolding it. All right, so you can see, pops out really easily. There it is. Look how smooth. Yes, look at that. That is the benefit of a high quality silicone mold, because there's some tension inside that mold that is keeping your resin this perfectly glass smooth. Yes, that's a great question that just came up in the chat. Can you make your own silicone mold? And I want to do that. I'm going to show you a brand new product. This is what it looks like. We're going to move on. We have a new product. This is brand new, and this is super, super cool. This is not available anywhere else in the US except Michael's. So this is a silicone mold maker. Let me show you the back of the package. This will give you kind of the instructions in a snapshot here. But this is a material, starts as these little like beady looking things. This is a material that melts down and then allows you to press something into it and then make a mold. So we're going to do that right now. So the way that you use this is you heat up some water. So we have a cup of water in our microwave right now, and you want to heat it really hot. That's been in there for a few minutes, and it's basically to the boiling point. And I'm going to show you what you do. While we're waiting for that to come out of the microwave, let's see what we have going on back here. Remember these guys? Okay, so this one that we domed, I'm trying to show you the dome. I don't know if you can see that. It's a really smooth dome. Here are our shapes, and we can just pop those out. Any kind of wide flat shape like this, you do want to wait for it to cool. This will cause it to heat up. The curing process will cause it to be a little warm. You want to make sure that cools, because if it's warm and then you're popping it out of the mold, it might bend a little bit. But once it's cooled, it won't bend. All right, so that just pops right out of there. I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like. You can see we have a little bit of pieces there, a little bit of a dangly doodad over there. Question from Rachel, can you put jewelry charms in the resin? Absolutely, metal works great inside of resin. Okay, so how do I get those little doodads off? Well, I can just kind of pick them off. Got rid of those. If it's a bigger one, you can go in with these like kind of side nippers and just nip that away. And now it's smooth. Here's the front, and see it retained the hole. See, this is a hole right here. And that hole comes from this little silicone peg. So you do not have to drill it, although you can drill it. For example, if I wanted to modify this piece so that I had another hole on this side, we have a drill. I'm not going to spend time drilling it right now because I want to make sure we have time for the silicone mold maker, but I could drill holes wherever I want alongside here. All right, so there's that shape. Let's pop out this shape. And that has a little dangly doodad thing on it too, which I'm just going to clean off with my nail. Okay. All right, so then we connect these two pieces. I'll show you that at the end of the class because it's time for mold maker. Okay, so let me bring the camera up. Ooh, okay. Because this is a steaming cup of water and I don't want to steam the camera. up more. Okay. Okay, so hot water, mold maker. You just dump them into the water. I'm just eyeballing how much I think I need. And right when they hit the water, they're going to start to like clump up. So I've gone on in with some tweezers. I'm just like encouraging them to clump. Let's see. Starting to get this clump here. I'm going to get all the little stragglers. This is such a cool product, guys. I hope that you will try it. If you have something that you want to replicate, this is a great way to do that. Okay, so got all the little beads are now clumped together. Do not burn yourself. Please use caution with hot water. All right, so here we go. That is hot. And right away, I can start working with it. I am going to take, where did my little elephant guy go? Oh, no. No. Okay, well, no elephant. We're going to use this dolphin. See, this is oh, there's an elephant. Okay, here's a metal charm. I turn it face down and push it in. I can get my stick and just really push it. So I'm pushing it in, kind of forming it around there. And trying to keep it level. Because when we pour UV resin in, it's a liquid. It will find level. So if your mold isn't level, you may get uneven pouring. Okay, so that's that. I just let it cool. That's very important. Let it cool. All right, so let me put this off to the side. It will cool. And let's, first of all, get rid of this water. Let's go back to these pieces. I'm jumping around here. Okay, so here's our topper. It also has a hole right here. That's the hole. I'm going to connect that to the bottom piece using a jump ring. And here we're using quite a large jump ring. I think this is probably 8 millimeters because, you know, it's a bigger distance from here to here. All right, so jump rings. Use pliers, 2 pliers or pliers and fingers as I am. Find the break in the top and open it. I pull one toward me and one away from me. And then I feed that through the hole that is already in here. And I feed this through the hole. And then I close it in the opposite motion that I opened it. Question from Megan is, how do you not like scar the jump ring or bend it when you're opening it? You want to have a very good flat nose plier. See this plier here? It's flat. It doesn't have ridges on it. Ridges on it can kind of dent the jump ring. All right, so there is the earring topper. And then the final thing we have to do is just like we did to the hoop earring, we're going to be sticking that on the back. Okay, so let's get a little dollop of resin down here. Get a bunch of that resin on there, place it where I want it to go. Now I do want to make sure that I get it right at the top and not crooked. And then when it's where I want it to be, bring the lamp to it. Thank you, Michelle. That is the goal of these classes, to show you, do not be afraid of this material. It is, it may seem a little daunting at first, but it's very easy, and it's very easy to fix mistakes. Not mistakes, happy accidents. We'll take a cue from Bob Ross here. But if you have any happy accidents, you can fix them. If you overfill the mold, you can fix it. If you underfill the mold, you can fix it by adding more resin to it later. And I'm just kind of hitting it from all sides. There we go. All right, as this is curing, I will let you know that we do these classes about every 2 weeks, and we have some amazing classes coming up. The class that we have coming up in October, we're doing Halloween projects. Do not miss that one. That's up on Michael's right now. And here's our final earring. Show you the side of it and the back of it. You can see the customization options, endless. Here's our bangle. And I'm going to show you these bangles. If you've been in any of my classes, you've seen the show and tell of bangles, but let's do it again. Okay, so here we go. Dried flowers. This has some tints in it. We didn't use tints in our projects today, but let me show you. This is like a little bottle of tint, and you just drop it in to your resin and mix it up. So we use a little bit of tint, and a little bit of glitter in this one. This one we use some flakes. This one, these are polymer clay fruit slices. Also sold at Michael's, so cute. These are dried flowers, just a whole bunch of different colors of them. This one is flakes and glitter. This one we use some plastic word beads, letter beads, and then made words, made little phrases. Here we use seed beads. These are just seed beads straight from a bottle that we poured into the mold and poured some resin in there. And look how cute that looks. And this one, probably my favorite. Can anyone guess what this is? These are confetti sprinkles, not confetti. What do they call these? Candy sprinkles. Candy sprinkles from the grocery store. We just sprinkled inside the mold and it made this super cute. So you can see how versatile this material is. Look at all these together. Gorgeous. Okay, and the last few minutes that we have, back to our elephant here. So this is cool. It's still slightly warm, but I can start separating the elephant, remove him. And now we have a mold. Question from Donna, are there larger bangle molds? There are not. We only have one size right now, but it's a pretty generous size. I have man hands. That's the scientific term. And it fits. I can just slide my hand right through there. So it's a pretty generous size. We were very sure to make it so that it could fit a lot of different wrists. Okay. All right. So here's my mold. I'm going to just quickly make something of it. And actually, I'll use one of the tints and show you how that is. So I'm going to mix some tint into it. We're going to make a pink elephant because why not? So here's our tint. I want to give it a good shake. Shake, shake, shake. These are very concentrated. I'm just going to put one drop. Here we go. So you can see one drop. It tints it, but keeps it transparent. I'm going to make sure that that is mixed all the way in. All right, and then filling it up. Just like you would use any of the pre-made molds. And with my stick here, I'm going to wipe off that side, go in with the pointy side. And I want to just make sure that that resin got down into his feet and into his trunk here. Now you can see this one does have some bubbling to it. That can happen when you are mixing tint in. And, you know, I didn't do it the right way. When I mixed that tint, I was like whipping air into it. You don't need to be so crazy with that. If you don't whip air into it, you can really avoid those bubbles. But if there are bubbles, you can wait a little bit. They'll kind of come to the surface. Or if they're larger bubbles, you can just kind of pop them using the pointy end of the stick. Okay. All right, so let me cure this. While that's curing, I will ask you guys again for, if you post, use UV Resin Craft as your hashtag so we can check that hashtag, see what you guys are making. Hashtag Make It With Michaels. You can connect with me at Stephanie Menor Creates. We also, Blue Moon Studio, that's the name of the company. We have our own Instagram now. That's will be linked in my Instagram bio. And we'll have it printed on here for the next class for you to make it easier. All right, last call for questions. And I saw one question pop up on the mold maker. Is it reusable? I forgot to mention, so thank you so much for asking that question. It is absolutely reusable. You can take this mold, once you do whatever you want with it, make 100 elephants out of it. When you're done with it, put it back in hot water and soften it up and use it again and again and again and again. So this is an amazing value because it's so reusable. It may get a little dirty after using it all that time, but totally reusable. I saw a question pop up and I'm sorry, I did not see what it said. Something about when you use the resin. I couldn't see that. I don't know, Jen, if you can see.
Yes, Stephanie, if you, how do you use the resin to attach the earring back? Like, why is it better to use?
Yes, thank you. So to attach the earring back, obviously we use resin. You can use an adhesive. You want to use like a really strong metal glue, like E6000 is always what I recommend. There's also like hypo cement that works really well too. You don't want to use, any like Elmer's glue. It needs to have a very strong bond, and bonding plastic to metal is always a difficult bond. So you want to use a high quality glue, but you already have a bottle of resin. So we like to show you that it can be used not just for casting, not just for doming, but as an adhesive. Makes a wonderful, wonderful adhesive. Thank you for your question. All right, so this has gone for a little bit here. I also want to make sure it has totally cooled. So what's happening when this is under the lamp, and we're running over time now, but just stay with me thank you for staying so much. What's happening under the lamp is a chemical reaction is happening. And one of the byproducts to that chemical reaction is heat. So that's why your silicone molds will heat up a little bit. It's really important when you're using this mold maker material that you let that cool. Because if I try to pop this out too soon, that silicone is a little bit sticky, and so it might stick to it. So this is cooled. Let's see what we have. So I'm just loosening it up from the edges. And we have an elephant. Okay, he's not perfect. He's got some little flashy areas here, which again, going with your nail or an emery board or something like this. There you go. And then I can make unlimited elephants. And when I'm done with this, throw it back in the hot water and make something else. So I hope that you will try this, try using molds, try using UV resin, and try making your own molds. Again, post your creations on Instagram. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll see you back in a couple weeks with Halloween projects. Super spooky, awesome. Join us. Thank you so much.